Can you hear the mower?
I can't.
You can't?
No.
Oh, okay, good. My neighbor just decided to start mowing, so that's a good thing.
All right. It looks like we're back on, Matt. So we
Cool.
apologize.
No, that's okay.
For getting off there, I guess. But Matt, we were just talking about songwriting. So I guess can you talk about like your process for songwriting now? I mean, I know like depending on the song, that
Yeah.
process can change, but what are some things that work for you, or maybe some tips that you can give people that are doing songwriting?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to say to start with that question is I'm still feeling my way through songwriting. It's such a different atmosphere than I've really ever really been in. And so I'm figuring out still, like, what are daily rhythms? What do I need to be doing? How do I connect? Like, how do I disconnect and then connect? What do I need to do structurally to sit down? What's my process? What does that look like? Because to be honest with you, I don't have a ton of songs. But the ones that I have written that I'm proud of, I've released, and I have some right now that I'm right in the middle of. And so here's what I'm finding just in writing, because every song that I've released they've come to me different. What I will say, no song has ever been like forced out of me. Like I can't sit down and force a song. I have to get rid of my phone, disconnect from almost like all technology, minus like my MIDI controller. Like I'm in my little studio right now. You can kind of see this, but this is where I spend my time.
But you're just like removing all the distractions.
Yeah, I have to remove all distractions. Anything that's not going to help me when inspiration comes gets eliminated, which is really hard to do sometimes with kids.
Well, actually, that's a good question. We'll go back to my original question. How do you eliminate distractions when you're at home with wife and kids and all the normal stuff that people have?
I've just learned to work through it. You kind of have to. There is no, magic potion. I pick certain times to write. We're really blessed to, my kids go to my parents once a week on Fridays. Fridays is a writing day for me. Yesterday was a writing day for me. And so, there's certain times throughout the day that I can sit down and get a good 2 or 3 hours. Kylie will take the boys, they'll go work out or something. Or, I just invested in some really good headphones, and I can really escape. I just got to shut my door and I can escape in those headphones. And so you just got to get creative and crafty with it, but it's just part of it.
And I guess I say that because you have a pretty normal home studio, so I think what you're doing is doable, because it's not like you have to go to an expensive studio to do what you're doing on a daily basis.
Especially not to write. Like my dream setup was the tools that I need to create a demo that I can take to people that I really trust, as far as like producers and stuff, all the while learning production skills as well. But I don't need to be in a $2 million studio to create music. In fact, I would actually argue that, obviously anything can come out of those spaces, but those spaces tend to heighten my
like anxiety, or
a little bit of like nerves, and like I'm not overly comfortable. And so this space for me is safe. It's kind of sacred for me. Like it's my spot. Like I don't know. I can really write in here. This is where I've written everything that I've written has been in here.
Well, do you write on your MIDI controller more or on guitar more? That I'm kind of curious about that.
God, that's such a good question. My song LA that I wrote right after my journey on The Voice, I wrote on guitar. I had experience with the drop D tuning, which I hadn't really dove into for some reason a lot. And I started figuring out kind of these like weird not weird chord structures, but think something that sounded really good to me. And then I came up with the kind of guitar melody that song has. And that was all written on guitar. But Couple of Fools, the song that I came out with about almost 2 weeks ago, was totally through a loop in Logic. It's like a loop that I ran across. A lot of those times, like those loops aren't any good. But in that song, there's this loop that's like bum, 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 that I was like, oh my gosh, I was sitting in my room and it just kind of had, and I threw this like kick drum under it. And out of nowhere, I had the, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is dope. And like I have a million ideas every single day. It's really hard to capture them all. But that moment, I was like, all right, this is something that's kind of groovy. It's kind of special. It reminds me of summer, of just like hanging out. And then, I hit up a couple of my friends in Nashville. I kind of had like the idea of the song. And we got into a room. We wrote that song in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, laid down the demo 30 minutes later, and then it was all gravy from there.
Well, I guess here's a good question, that something I think of. Do you know pretty immediately if the song is good? Like, do you think songs have to grow on you, or do you know like immediately you have that? Maybe you don't have everything for it, but do you know pretty quickly if a song is it?
Man, it's really funny. Right before this, I was watching there's a podcast called "And the Writer Is." It's Ross Golan. He's a songwriter, and he interviews writers that are like top 40. These people are like in rooms with some of the greatest musicians today and artists today. And I asked something similar. I asked that same question because they were having a live, and one of the songwriters has been on tons of almost every song you can think of. And I asked that question. I asked, do you revise as you're writing, or do you write all your ideas down and revise later? Because I've experienced with both. But I have a tendency to judge as I go, which almost a lot of the writers will tell you not to do that. But I can tell pretty quickly if this was just like this trail that I'm on for like 15 minutes is a distraction, or if it's actually like really good. Like there's a couple of things that I'm working right now on for my next EP that I want to come out with in the fall, and talk about like melodies and lyrics that just hit me out of nowhere. I was in my office just hanging out, and one of them, actually the most recent one, I was sitting in my office, nothing was coming, and it was an hour. And I was literally like sitting in my chair like this, just like with my pen, just like twirling my pen, like, oh my gosh, like I am not leaving until something comes. And out of nowhere, I had this synth pad on my keyboard, and this tune, we'll go dancing, dancing in the moonlight, leave it all behind. Just like this, out of nowhere, just this melody. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I like sat up in my chair and like hit record, and it like did all these takes. And I have this like chorus and this verse, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for this EP, because I have 2 other projects going on to that EP. And it was like the most like that moment of like 15 seconds was worth me sitting in my chair just like for an hour, like nothing is coming.
Right. And I think, now, listen, I'm not trying to compare myself to you, because I definitely have not written quite the songs that you have. But it's like it seems like you have to be pretty patient as a songwriter, because, I mean, how much time do you think you spend on stuff that's crap compared to, because I'm sure you have a bunch of stuff out there that's terrible, right? I mean, every songwriter talks about that. I mean, how much of that stuff is good? I mean, how much time do you feel like you have to spend to get to the good stuff?
Right now, a lot, because I'm just not overly good at it. And I'm not quick, but I know guys right now that are so quick, like especially with lyrics or melodies. I'm actually more probably a melody guy. Like I can come up with melodies all day long. Lyrics, on the other hand, take me a lot of time, because I don't want to be the cheesy guy. I don't want to say what's already been said. I compare myself a lot to like the John Mayers and like these amazing writers. But you know, right now it's, if 100% of the stuff that I have, 10% of it is like, oh, this is it. But what I'll say is like, if I spent 5 hours in my office just twirling my thumbs and trying new things, and I got and I end up getting a chorus out of that, or like a line to a verse, to me, it's totally worth it, because eventually I'll have a full song. That's what I'm realizing, is it's just the hard work of showing up and hoping that something comes, you know, and we don't know where it comes from.
Right.
Like, I know where it comes from. For me personally, it's like, I have, like, before I sit down every single time, I pray. Like, I legit pray, you know, and if you're watching this and that's not you, totally cool. But for me, like, it's a connection to the creator. And I say, God, like, I need you to come through and show me something creative today. And, you know, sometimes sometimes it does. It takes like 3 hours. Sometimes I get up and nothing happens. That's like probably most of the time, which is not what you want to hear as a writer. But that's everybody. That's some of the best guys. They'll always tell you, like, you know, I was listening to, this is going to be kind of long-winded, but I listened to Harry Styles the other day. He did an interview with Zane Lowe. I'm a pretty big Harry Styles fan now.
His solo stuff is great. Yeah,
his solo stuff is amazing. What he said about songwriting was, it's like surfing. And I love this analogy, but he said, you have to practice surfing to be able to surf. But some days the waves aren't coming. And no matter how much you've practiced, the waves are just not there. However, when the waves do come and you haven't practiced and you're not able to stand up on the board, you're not going to be able to ride the wave. And so it's just showing up every single day so that when the waves come, you're able to stand up on the board and surf the wave, right? And that's what I'm starting to figure out is the key to songwriting, is just showing up every day, putting in the practice and the work. And when the waves come, like, it's just so fun to ride it. Yeah. Like me sitting in my office twirling my thumbs. When that melody came, I was ready. Boom. I literally wrote the chorus to this song that's going to be on this EP in 20 seconds. It was the first thing that came out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's almost so simple that it's, to me, this is just me speaking. Don't make this sound like arrogant, but like, it's so simple. It's brilliant to me. And the melody is just like amazing. And so it was just riding the wave, you know, it came and I was ready for it.
Well, so let's, I'm just thinking, cause you have some experience with this. I think, is there any advice you want to give to people that are, you know, trying to pursue being a songwriter, or, yeah, maybe some like resources that you found that helped you out?
Yeah. So I'll start with resources. Two things about resources. One, they can be a big distraction. I've read every songwriting book you can think of, or at least tried to go through them. And what I ended up realizing was they're just a distraction. They all say the same thing. And you try to find like ways to, you know, write great music, when at the end of the day, it's like, you just need to sit down and write. Stop reading so many books. A friend in Nashville told me that. I was like, well, have you read And the Writer Is, or The Artist Way, and have you read Better Lyrics, Writing Better Lyrics with Pattinson, like all these things? And this guy goes, yeah, you need to stop reading books and write. And I was like, oh man. But what I will say, two of my favorite resources right now are And the Writer Is, which is a podcast. You can also watch it on YouTube. It's Ross Golan. He interviews amazing singer-songwriters or just songwriters in the industry. And a book that changed my perspective on writing is The Artist Way. It's just an incredible book. I've read it 3 times and it's amazing. Some advice I would give some songwriters is a few things. One, you don't have to have the best space and the most advanced gear to write. That's something that I struggle with, because when I feel like I can't write music, I'm like, well, I need a new microphone. I texted Kyler the other day and I was like, hey man, what mics do you guys have? You feel like you need a new microphone, or you feel like your space isn't good enough, or you don't have the right speakers or whatever. All you need is a pen, a notepad, and some musical inspiration. Like, that's all you need. 2, I think Picasso said this, inspiration comes, but it has to find you working. You have to show up, and that's a really hard thing to take in. My buddy Tyler says that all the time. I think you'll talk to Tyler pretty soon, but he says that too. And it's just, no one in no other industry do you show up to work going, I might not accomplish anything today. But writing, you show up and go, legit, I might not accomplish anything today, but I'm going to show up with the hopes that something comes. And when it comes, it's amazing. I would say just, you have to show up. You don't have to have the best space. Find other artists and musicians that you really like love and maybe aspire to emulate or be like one day. Find local talent and just go for it. I mean, that's all you can do.
Well, and I guess that kind of brings up something I was curious about, because there's a lot of people out there that have talent, and I think one thing you've done more than other people is surround yourself, like you have surrounded yourself with like pretty amazing people. So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, how did you do that? I'm sure that's something that took a lot of time, and how much of a difference has that made?
It's such a huge difference. Like, I don't like being like, take this with context. I don't want to be in a room where I'm the best person in the room. I'm in the wrong room if that's the case, right?
That's great advice.
Yeah, I want to be in a room where everybody in there is so much more experienced and just better than me, because I'm always wanting to learn. And when you surround yourself with people like that, it just makes you better. There is something to be said about being in a small town like Midland and Odessa, where, it's my number one complaint. We don't have a lot of creatives. It's hard to be inspired here. I can't just call somebody to do a co-write. Like, it just doesn't happen here. And so I've had to get creative, and I have a couple of buddies here that are very talented, that have pushed me to be better and are really good friends of mine. But I've just put myself in. I've just asked. Like, I've networked. I've met people. I've done the hard things. The Voice was not an easy. That is not an easy process. But I've met incredible people through The Voice that have introduced me to incredible people. And this guy that produced a couple of Fools, his name's Mitchell. I met him through one of my best friends, Will, that lives in Nashville. And it was random. It was like, I was in Nashville trying to do some co-writes, and my buddy Will was like, hey, I'm going to call my friend Mitch. He's a pop guy and he's really awesome, and I think you guys would mesh well. He called him. We went to his house that day and we wrote a couple of Fools, and Mitchell's one of my like really, really good friends now. And it's just putting yourself, in those situations. And there is no such thing as a lone wolf. Like, you can try all you want to, but you're only going to be as good as the strengths that you bring to the table.
Right. And I guess you bring up something important. A lot of people don't realize there are maybe only 2 degrees of separation between them and somebody that could really help them out. They might not know it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
But that's good advice. Well, I guess you can tell me what you'd rather talk about. I want to hear your thoughts on The Voice, but I also want to hear you talk about music in the city. I know those two things kind of overlap with each other, time-wise. So I guess whatever you want to start with there, Matt. But I'm just curious how both of those things are, because I know those are 2 things that are pretty important to you.
Yeah. So music to me in general is art is just influence to me. We're all in this pandemic and sheltered in place and all this stuff. Not as like it's starting to open up now, but without you knowing it, a lot of times, not you, but people watching, without us knowing it, a lot of times art is everywhere that we are. If we're in a restaurant, we hear music. If I'm out, nature is art. Like it's all just, art is everywhere. And so to be a part of creating something that's artistic, music is actually pretty phenomenal for me. And if that's the gifts that I've been given, then I'm going to do everything that I can and spend all the resources that I can to make sure that I do that to the best of my ability. And so Music in the City was something I wanted to do for Midland. That was just like, hey, there's a need here. There's like a huge lack of just like weekend music. Like nobody is out just like playing shows. And so I started that randomly, which was awesome for you to be a part of. And a lot of you guys don't know, but Kyler played electric with me on that and had to suffer through all the John Mayer, all the John Mayer tune.
Well, it was easy. I already knew all of it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because you're a freaking G. And so Music in the City was something cool. It's just a way to give back. Me and my wife both are creatives. And I'm under the impression that like, if I'm in Midland for a season, we eventually want to move. But if I'm in Midland for a season, then I'm going to do what I can to add value to Midland, right? I can either complain or add value, right? That's right. The only options. And if you're not adding value, then you're out of here. Yeah, you're just consuming, and I don't want to just be a consumer. And so that was Music in the City. And then, you know, it takes those things to put you on stages like The Voice. Like it takes showing up and putting in the work and just doing it, and then doors open and The Voice happened, and that was incredible. Such an amazing journey. I don't want to like go on to all the details. I think people know, but
right.
It was just such an amazing, it's just a priceless experience. Like you can't pay for something like that. Like
you can't replicate it again.
No, you know, people ask me, would you go back to The Voice? No, I would never do another TV show ever again. American Idol, like they did do this, but like, it's really weird because they hit up people when they're on The Voice. American Idol will.
Oh, okay.
And probably vice versa. It's just the entertainment industry. And I was like, there's no way. Like I would not, first of all, I'm too old now. They didn't know this, but I would not do another TV show because I can't replicate what happened, right? Just the people that I met, everything that, it was just incredible. But The Voice opened up. And then when I got back from The Voice, playing a show at the Wagner Noel, which is one of the most, as an artist, is one of the most incredible venues nationwide. Like that place is state of the art. Never did I think I was going to play a show at the Wagner, but we did. And, you know, it's just.
And how much money did you raise at that show, by the way? I mean.
Man, here's what's really incredible is those grants. I think we raised a little over $15,000, which was split between both cities, Midland and Odessa. And Education Foundation of Odessa and Midland both are posting what those funds have gone to. It's incredible. It's like new gear for Permian high schools, fine arts, new this. And it's like this list. And I look at that and I'm like, man, we were a part of that. It wasn't just me. Again, there is no lone wolf. Like none of that would have happened if I didn't have people around me that support me and that are talented in their own right. And just, we made that happen, and it's just so phenomenal. I don't know. It's
just kind of like one of those things, like you'd like, man, I know I was there, but it's like so surreal that it's hard to imagine it sometimes.
It really is. And I look back and it's just like, man, you know, not every show is going to be at the Wagner, but when that does happen, it's just such a highlight.
Yeah, that'd be a good house gig, you know, come catch me every Friday at the Wagner.
Oh my gosh, that would be, I'd run out of songs like I always do. Every time I do a live show with covers, I run out of songs. And so I have like 15 in my arsenal, and then I'll get done with them and people are like, keep going. And I'm like, oh, I don't know anything else. So they're like, play some George Strait. And I'm like, I don't know George Strait. So yeah, going back to your question, it's just those two things, Music in the City, just adding value, and then just stepping out and trying new things. Like to be honest with you, man, I'm to a point, I could care less. Like I am not afraid of failure at all. I will try anything. Like legit, Justin Timberlake could call me tomorrow and be like, hey, do you want to open up for me at Madison Square Garden? And as terrified as I would be and try to get songs together to make that happen, I would like go all in. You know, I just don't care. I'm like, that won't happen. But I'm just saying, like, there's just nothing that I'm afraid of when it comes to music. And it's a really cool place to be because I try new things. I'm not tied down to a label right now. I can create whatever I want to create. I can put out whatever I want to put out when I want to put it out. And so it's really cool season of life for me.
Yeah, well, and I would think as you know, as a musician, it's kind of something you need to have that ability just to go out and do anything because you never know what opportunity will come.
Yeah.
Um, maybe tell me this. I was just kind of curious because I talk about this with friends of mine. You've hired a lot of musicians, you know, at least, you know, some, I say hired, you know, at church, you pick what musicians you play with. You're a band leader in that sense. You've had your own band that you've been a band leader in. What do you think are important things that like musicians can work on, or what's some things that you hear from people that you're like, if I'm going to hire someone to play with me, this is what I want?
Yeah. Like what's a good quality of like a musician?
Yeah, like how to be hireable as a musician. I
Yeah.
don't know if a lot of people talk about that, but you've done it.
Dude, that's a great question. I would say you encompass a lot of these characteristics. The guys that I play with
Extremely
encompass
good looking.
extremely good. You have to look like Kyler.
Yeah.
You have to have Kyler swag. Here's the thing, man. Number one, just first and foremost is humility. You know, if I'm going to show up to the table and say, hey, I'm not the best one in this room, and I depend on you to play guitar to the best of your ability, just like you depend on me to sing to the best of my ability, and we can all do that collectively, that's a big deal. And I've been blessed with just people in this community that are insanely talented, insanely humble, and just good people. But I would say number one is humility. Obviously, bar none, the most important is just talent. You have to be good at your craft. You know, hardworking, you know, willing to show up, you know, late nights. It's like, that's kind of, you know, when we did the Wagner show, like those guys are incredible. And, you know, we spent a lot of time rehearsing that stuff and away from our families doing that. And so that's a really important thing to have, as just work ethic, excellence, and humility, just kindness. You know, I have been around musicians and artists that you're just like, man, you're just so difficult to work with, just to be around. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how you get anything done, and I never want to be that, right?
Right. You kind of wonder why people even want to be around them. I mean,
right. And it's just sad, you know, because they have their own struggles and battles, which make them that way. But, you know, I think of a guy like Joe Ayler or Chris Davis or Dave Parker. Those guys, one, they have played together for so long. And two, they're phenomenal at what they do. Like they're just excellent at their craft. But three, they're just likable guys. Like it's just, you know, like I'll put you there too. Tyler Dodds is another one that's like, it's just like, I'm going to show up to this room and this rehearsal and this setting, knowing that what I bring to the table, I'm confident that I'm good. I'm confident that I have what it takes, but I'm also not the light. I'm not the star of the show, and I'm not the hero. I have that as well. When we went to the Wagner Noel, there wasn't anything in me that was like, this is my show, right? I'm the hero of the story. It like
back up.
Legit
for Matt.
Yo, I need one spotlight and it's on me. Everything else on the stage is dark. I need you guys to wear all black. Don't smile. No, it like every single time I showed up, my mindset, legitimately, these guys don't know this, was like, how the heck am I playing with these dudes? Like these guys are too good for me. You know what I mean? Part of that is like, Matt, shut up. You need to get some confidence. But it's the other reality that like, man, these guys are incredible. And if I have that mindset and they have that mindset, because I would tell Chris that like, dude, I don't deserve to play with you. And he's like, whatever, dude, I can't sing like you. Right. It's like we all have our own gifts and we all come together. And that's what I love. That's my dream scenario. My dream scenario would be to have a band like that and to travel and tour.
Right. And unless you're John Mayer, you know, he's the only guy that can sing and play
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, so help me with this. I struggle with this. How, you know, unless you have somebody to vouch for you, how do you, you know, divide that line between being confident in your playing and not being arrogant? Because
Yeah.
I think you do have to be confident to get work. Because if you just tell people you're terrible, they might just think you're terrible.
Yeah.
So then, so how do you balance that, or at least, you know, maybe some advice you can give?
That's a great question because I've had to learn how to be confident with like airing the side of like not being like, oh my gosh, that guy thinks he's the best thing to ever happen to the world.
Right. Well, and singers especially, I think people just automatically have a notion that you're going to be difficult. So
yeah,
you kind of have it worse than me.
Here's the thing, man. Sometimes I am difficult. Like I will only use certain sound guys, like Cody Gaines. Every time I do a show, he's the first person I call. I'm like, Cody, please, can you run sound for this show? Because I don't want to have to deal with like a sound guy that I can't get along with or that doesn't know what I'm trying to translate. Because a lot of times I don't know how to translate. Hey, I need a little bit more higher and a lower end, or can you like make my voice a little bit more wet or whatever? Cody just gets it. You know what I mean? So,
well, he understands you. We had Cody on last week, by the way.
I saw that. He did it. Yeah, Cody is phenomenal. But going back to the question, it's really weird because I'm in the industry of like having to self-promote myself. Like, hey, I'm awesome. I can sing great. My new single is going to blow your mind, without being like, I'm the greatest thing to ever walk this planet. It's just a mindset. You know, if someone thinks someone is arrogant, they've given them a reason to think that. And my hope is that I'm so communicative with my body language and how I interact with people that nobody even, like, if someone were to think that about me, it's because, you know, it might be through a photograph. You know, doing photography is hard for me. Like, we went to LA and we did all this photography and I was trying all hard, but dude, deep down, I'm like, God, I look so stupid right now. You know what I mean? So I just, there's not a fiber in me. Not that I'm perfect, but there's not a fiber in me that thinks that I'm better than the next guy, you know? And if there ever is, and that's that competition, then I have to get rid of it. And, you know, I try real hard to come across as like genuine and caring and, you know, just willing to give of my time however I can. And so you'll know, like, you know, it's like when you meet someone, it takes 10 seconds before you go, all right, this guy is self-centered. He talks about himself the whole time and he loves to be the best guy in the room. Right. That's against everything in my DNA. I hate being the best guy in the room. You know, I have to talk about myself to promote my music, but it's still kind of a little bit, it's just a fine line, you know?
Right. Well, and hopefully that helps some people out there that are, if you're a musician and maybe some of the stuff you don't even necessarily think about until maybe someone talks about it like we are. And you're like, oh, actually, maybe my body language doesn't necessarily reflect. I don't know if you're a Malcolm Gladwell fan, but he has a great book called Talking to Strangers that just came out, where he just talks about some of the worst things that happen because your body language doesn't match what your intent is. So,
and let me say this real quick: the importance, because I just spent a lot of time talking about not being arrogant, but there's an importance to confidence, right?
Right.
It's walking into a room and going, no, I have, and this took me a long time to get to, but it's going, I am a good singer. I have put in a ton of work to excel in my craft, and I have what it takes
I think you kind of have to have an ego on stage. I mean,
right. You have to
feel that you're good.
Yeah. And people are drawn to that, and people know, like they know, but I do want to stress the importance of confidence in your ability. Because if you don't have confidence in your ability, you'll show up a nervous wreck and you won't perform like you should and let go and allow what you've worked on for so long to shine through, you'll be so anxious that you can hardly move, which I was in that space for a long time. But confidence allowed me to step on the voice stage and be every bit of anxious as I was, but use those nerves for my good. That's confidence, right? It's like, I have worked so hard on this. I will not fail by being anxious and scared, dropping the mic, or being shaky, like, and nervous. I will not, like, I refuse to do that. But confidence allowed me to walk up on that stage, take the mic in my hand and sing because I believed in what I have. And I think that's a really important quality.
And listen, this was the show that you were on, but it's kind of the hard thing now because, like, in some ways, the music is turning into a competition when, you know, really that's not the whole idea with music is that it's not a competition.
Yeah.
But maybe just to wrap up, because I think we're getting to the point that that we probably need to end it.
Yeah.
You know, what have you been doing lately? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about songwriting, but I know you have a new single out, Couple of Fools. What's in the pipeline, if you can talk about it?
Yeah.
And what might we expect from you here in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a couple of shows lined out throughout the summer that I can play. That's the thing right now is like almost no shows are happening, but there is a show in Midland July 1st for Green Tree that I'm going to do, which is really exciting, full band. So I've got a couple of shows coming up, but right now I'm solely focused on an EP that I'm trying to come out with in the fall. So I've already got the songs they're not fully written, but I have the song concepts and the melodies for those songs. And that's my main laser focus right now. Eventually I do want to come out with like some merch, and I don't mean like, Matt New music, but like awesome, like kind of like designer clothing and type stuff that I just enjoy, that I think people would enjoy. That's kind of a big goal of mine this year. And that's pretty much it, man. I'm so like, I want to be a great cook. I want to be a great longboard rider. I want to be a great, like, all these things. But I'm getting to a place in my life where I'm like, no. I need to really laser focus on this. And this EP is going to be special. Like, I'm really, really excited with what I have right now. And the goal is to have it out like September, October. So that's what I'm pushing towards.
Well, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, Matt's doing music full time, so I mean, you're fully in, which is, I think, an awesome thing to see. So
yeah, that was important for me. It's not important for everybody. Some people will tell you don't quit your day job, but for me, I had to take the plunge full in, as scary as it is. But you know, God's always taking care of me, and you know, our family is doing awesome, and people in this community are incredible, and they support me and they support us, and it's just, you know, it's been the best decision I've ever made.
Well, I mean, if your goal is to do music, at some point you do have to commit to it.
Take the dive.
So
you're never gonna
you just
feel
have
ready.
to dive a little bit earlier. But
yeah, it's like having a kid. It's like, you might think you're ready to have a kid, but when you have a kid, you were never really ready to have a kid. You just kind of have to make it. I know that's a weird analogy, but you just have to make it happen. Like you kind of have to just take it. I don't know why that came to mind, but
well, probably because the fact you have two boys probably on the other side of that wall.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I love it. Just kidding.
So people can find you on Instagram and Facebook, I know for sure. Are you on any other platforms or anything else you want to push?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'm really active on Instagram. I have to be active on TikTok and Facebook, which is like whatever. It goes to the self-promoting thing. I have to be like on every platform. Like, hey, it's me. I'm on Patreon, which isn't for everybody, but Patreon is just a way to support me monthly from as little as $5 a month. And then you get like exclusive content. So I've been posting like a lot of behind the scenes stuff, my writing processes, I make videos like Couple of Fools. I'm about to release a video of like my whole process of Couple of Fools on there. So, people support me anywhere from $5 to $100 a month on there, which is incredible for me. And it's an amazing platform. So it's called Patreon.
Well, I mean, you probably don't sell CDs, do you?
No, but what's really important to me is streaming.
Right.
A lot of people are like, how do I support artists? Do I go to iTunes and buy their song? Yeah, that's a way to support. Really, a way to support is when somebody comes out with music. If you're on Spotify, like it, add it to some of your playlists, share it with your friends. If you're on Apple Music, like it, add it to some of your playlists. That's kind of the big thing right now. And so I do appreciate you asking that question because it means a lot to artists and musicians.
Well, and I was just curious because music just keeps evolving. A lot of people are kind of negative about music in general right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you just have to be more creative with how you get income. I mean, from
Yeah.
all my friends that I've seen, or if you're like YouTube, who knew like a YouTube musician was going to be a career? But some guys are making a killing.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I've been doing vocal lessons, and I might open up some more slots here in the next few weeks. But that's been really fun too, man. Just to meet one-on-one with aspiring singers and to be able to take the gifts that I've been given and to kind of translate that, and has been really awesome to watch.
Awesome. So everybody, be sure to look up Matt New. I did see a question for you, Matt. So let me scroll back here and find it. It was Derek, by the way.
Oh, Derek.
Let's see. He said, "Do you think you try to write for your voice/style, or do you think you write for whatever and for whomever? Meaning, do you let the song dictate the style and/or lyrics, or do you sit down and say, I'm going to write a song about whatever today?"
Mostly and lately, I've been writing based off the style that I want to hear. And so I'll hear a melody, come up with a line, and then kind of put lyrics to that. That's a great question. I would love to sit in rooms where I'm not writing for myself, I'm writing for someone else. That's kind of a goal of mine, just co-writing in general. But me personally, how I write right now is for this EP, it has a specific sound and a specific vibe. So I'm writing, I can't put Bob Dylan lyrics to a Couple of Fools. You know what I mean? It's like, as much as I want to, it just would come across kind of weird. So I write based on, the topic can be about anything, but I write the lyrics based on the vibe of the music. And I could be doing it totally wrong, but I don't think there are any rules really in songwriting as long as you get a good product.
Yeah. I think as long as you finish a song. And
that's a great question, though. That's the traditional thing would be to sit in a room with a co-write and go, hey, Kyler's a recording artist. We're going to help him write his next single, and it's country. I would love to do that. That would be awesome. So
yeah. That is a good question, Derek. So I'm glad to hear that. Well, Matt, thank you for being on. If you have any questions for Matt, comment. Matt will be watching this post, and reach out to Matt if you have. I mean, any event. I would assume you're probably cool with playing. Wedding. Yeah. Bar mitzvah, whatever. So thank you for being on today, Matt. And hopefully we'll have Matt on again to maybe talk about some other things. So give us some ideas. But thank you.
Thank you, guys.